Figment up here since I'm too short for the podium anyway. All right, so hi everyone. I'm here today to take you on a journey into imagination. I think my slides just cut out, though. Can you confirm that? Okay, there we go. HDMI, old MacBook, it's fine. Cool, so I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me first. My name is Rachel White. I'm the Developer Experience Lead at American Express, which basically means it's my job to help improve the developer experience of learning and interacting with our APIs internally, so helping to fix pipelines and make things easier for our developers, whether you are an internal employee, the one that are building those, or if you're an external partner and you're wanting to integrate with our stuff. In addition to that, I'm also on the community committee for Node.js, where we deal with the non-code side of maintaining an open source project, so things like evangelism, internationalization, inclusivity, the Node website, et cetera, et cetera. And probably most importantly, I care a lot about the creative thought processes, especially when it comes to programming. So this is gonna be kind of a weird talk, which is nothing new for me, but this one's a little more cute than weird. So as a little bit of a background, also I'm so excited to use the sparkle transition. I've never gotten to do that before, and I felt like this was like the perfect excuse to finally get to do it. Anyway, this is me. I don't know how old I am, probably like under 7. I don't understand children. So I've been to Disney over 50 times. I grew up near Disney World, and I've been going since before I could even talk. I have like some old home videos of me when I was a baby, and my aunt is holding me, and she's like, "Rachel, look at Mickey," and my foot's in my mouth. So, but the thing that I really like about it is the immersive experience that you have while you're in the park and the kind of escape from reality that it provided. It was always like really thrilling and really exciting to me, and that probably correlates with my love for tiki bars. I just like not being in the regular world. And whenever I couldn't go to the park for a few years and I'd visit again, there would always be something new to see, thanks to the Imagineers. And I started thinking a lot about the experiences that I had as a child that helped shape me to who I am today professionally, and realized that Disney was a big part of it. And while, yes, I love Disney World, I'm gonna tell you about the park that I love even more. And that's Epcot. So I fell in love with Epcot the first moment that I can remember experiencing it, which was in the late 80s. Epcot stands for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And there's 2 major parts of the park. The first one is the World Showcase, and the next one is Future World. So Epcot is dedicated to the celebration of human achievement, namely technological innovation and international culture. It's also often referred to as the World's Fair. The World Showcase has 11 sections representing different countries. Most people know about the World Showcase because that's one of the places that everybody that's over 21 goes to get drunk in the Disney parks. But then Future World is a variety of pavilions that explore innovative aspects and applications, including technology and science. And so, while I could go on forever about all of the things that I love about the park in general, we're gonna focus on one major part, and that's the Imagination Pavilion, which is why Figment is here today, and why I decided to match him. So the Imagination Pavilion had to deal with imagination. It was really colorful and fun inside, and encouraged kids to be creative, and adults. Associated with the Imagination Pavilion were the Dreamfinder, who is the non-dragon, and Figment, who is the dragon. So the best part about the Imagination Pavilion was a section inside called ImageWorks, and it lasted from 1982 to 1988. I was born at the end of 1985, so I'm surprised that I can still remember some of this. There were things that you could interact with, like these step tones where guests could create music by stepping on the different lights and making different tones. And then there was also this coloring book thing where you had paintbrushes and you could like paint the colors and it all filled in with light. There were giant touch pin tables, so you know, like those things that you can put your face into and all the little metal pins. It sounds gross when you think about all the people touching it, but it was pretty cool. It was just really, really fun and encouraged you to like do things with technology, but creatively. And inside the Imagination Pavilion was a dark ride, which is what the rides in Disney that are in the dark are called. Who would have thought? It was called Journey into Imagination, and the inspiration for this talk is where I got the name from. So this one lasted from 1983 until 1998, and in the ride, the Dream Finder introduces himself and says he uses the Dreammobile to collect dreams and ideas to create all sorts of new things. So then he creates a figment of his imagination, and I wanted to show you some footage from that ride I found from 1996, so you can experience the same thing I got to as a child, because this ride has had 2 other iterations after it, and they're bad. They're really bad. So enjoy this video. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so here we go.
So glad you come on. I am the Dream Finder. Musical notes. What delightful melodies those will make. I love these flights of fancy, searching the universe for sounds, colors, ideas, anything that sparks the imagination. A sunbeam. That's a good one. Oh, everything I collect can inspire amazing and marvelous new ideas. And you never know what kind of figment you may come up with. Oh, here's my favorite. 2 tiny wings, eyes big and yellow, horns of a steer, but a lovable fellow. From head to tail, he's royal purple pigment, and there, voila! You've got a figment of imagination.
Dream Finder, I'm just right.
Not quite.
Huh?
I'll throw in a dash of childish delight. Look, Figment, some new friends have joined us.
Can they imagine too?
Of course, imagination is something that belongs to all of us.
You mean everyone can think up new things?
That's right, Figment. And every sparkling idea can lead to even more. So many times we're stumbling in the dark, and then eureka! What a spark!
How are we going to use lightning?
We can combine it with ghostly shivers on a stormy night and turn them into a tale of fright.
Oh, look, a rainbow. How do you use that? To paint with.
Now you've got it.
Wow. Numbers, letters, papers for writing, costumes, makeup, stages for lighting, teardrop laughter.
What about science?
Science? We'll need electron beams and crystal prisms, gyroscopes and magnetism, photographs and messages. Why?
The idea bag is full.
Idiots? That's start making new things.
Now wait. First we must store these ideas with the others in the dream port.
Are we almost there?
Oh, the dream port is never far away when you use your imagination.
Come on, everybody, let's
We
go!
all have spots.
All right, so one thing this video also shows is that people have been taking bad video since before cell phones could. So, except it was just also like really big and on your shoulder. So after that part of the ride, you go through and explore a bunch of different kind of creative applications, and they talk about science too, and they talk about how scientists and like astronauts and using your creativity, you can be whatever you want, and how, you know, creativeness can apply to anything. It doesn't just have to be like the arts. And I was like, that's awesome. So the experiences that I had as a kid with the Imagination Pavilion, there's me with the Dream Finder and Figment. I'm sure it's not the same one. They look a little different. But, and Epcot's emphasis on technology and feeling nostalgic for those moments of exploration led me to do a lot of research on the things I loved about the park. So the blend of the education and the creative learning. And I wanted to know more about how they did it. So I started reading up more about the Imagineers, and I found this quote from Walt Disney that says, "There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting. We call it imagineering, the blending of creative imagination and technical knowledge." So Imagineers are responsible for designing and building Disney theme parks, resorts, cruise ships, and other entertainment venues at all levels of project development. So they do the rides, but they also do like the interior of the restaurants to the menu design. It's everything. Everyone is an Imagineer. There's over 140 different job titles that fall under the banner of Imagineering, including illustrators, architects, engineers, lighting designers, show writers, graphic designers. So all these people that are multidisciplinary, they're all using the same principles for when they create. I read a few books on Imagineering and I realized how perfect it was for what we all do every day. So I know that not everyone likes Disney, and that's totally fine. What I think is the most important thing from this is how successful and how adaptable their model for creating is, and that's something to learn from. So why apply this to software? You're probably like, okay, this is for a theme park, but how can I possibly utilize this in my day-to-day? And I'm gonna tell you, don't worry. I'm not just gonna make you watch vintage Disney rides all day, although that would be fun, for me at least. So basically, from the moment that you get in line for an attraction at Disney, the Imagineers know how to keep you captivated. And shouldn't we be doing that for the people that are using our code? They're also responsible for crafting your entire experience from start to finish and making sure that you stay engaged. And wouldn't you want someone that's reading your documentation or going through your demos to feel that way as well? You don't want to lose their attention in the middle of the important things that you're telling them. So basically, all of the Imagineers go by these, Mickey's 10 Commandments. And Mickey's 10 Commandments were created by a legendary Imagineer named Marty Sklar. And they were from his experiences and learnings early on in his 56-year career at Disney. And they're basically the basis for how every Imagineer tackles a project. And I think they're extremely helpful for our own processes. We talk a lot about strategic thinking or thinking like more technically, and this is the opposite of that. They're all centered around the experience of the park goer. So for each of the 10 Commandments, I'm gonna talk about Disney's reasoning behind it and how I feel that we can all utilize that with our own users and our own code. So number 1 is know your audience. Number 2 is wear your guest's shoes. 3 is organize the flow of people and ideas. 4, create a visual magnet. 5, communicate with visual literacy. 6, avoid overload. 7, tell one story at a time. 8, avoid contradictions, maintain identity. 9, for every ounce of treatment, provide a ton of treat. And the easiest one for me to adapt to programming, keep it up, maintain it. So let's just jump right into it. For the first one, know your audience, Marty Sklar wrote that how you communicate and what you communicate is totally influenced by who you identify as your target audience. Walt Disney started out planning for Disney by going to other amusement parks with his daughters and sitting on a bench and observing, seeing what worked and what didn't, and he didn't start his vision for the parks without knowing who he was making it for. For us as engineers, it's also important to know our audiences. More well-established projects track metrics and behaviors of their users, but that's already people that are using a product. So what can we do to plan before we even write a piece of code? If we have an idea for the end result, why don't we take a look at similar projects or projects that you aspire to be like? How do the users interact with it? What could you possibly do better? So this can be something like, what languages do they support in their APIs? Or are we going to use NPM or Yarn? And someone who does this fantastically, not someone, a project that does this fantastically is NodeBots. So the way that they cater for every single skill level in their documentation makes the process really fun and engaging. So if you don't know what you're doing, it's okay because they have the documentation available so that you can find the pieces that you need and piece it together to like get what you need to get done. They're aware that a lot of people that are using NodeBots are venturing into hardware for the first time, so they make it easy for them to do that. But if you're somebody that's more, advanced, they have a Gitter room where you can chat and harass them in a friendly way to get them to help you out. Not that I've ever done that. Number 2 is wear your guest shoes. So in Disneyland's early years, Walt insisted that every designer had to go to the park at least every other week and stand in lines to understand, how the guests were experiencing it. So when writing your documentation, give it to somebody else to try. See if it's written plainly enough and accessible to all levels. Appeal to more than just the senior programmer. The more open you are to all levels of skill enables more adoption for your project. More people will talk about it and they'll encourage more people to use it. Early on in my career, I dealt a lot with undocumented code bases and documentation for libraries that were too hard for me to use because there wasn't a level of thought and care put into it for the user. Since then, I've told myself that I make sure anything I have my hand in making won't treat people the same. So here's an example of that. This is Webpack. A poor example of this, in my opinion, is what Webpack has on their landing page. Webpack is a super important bundler that a ton of people use, but I can't tell you the amount of times that I've heard programmers say, I just don't get it, or it's too hard. So it's that simple is really, not a great thing to say. And I gave a quick version of this talk at Brooklyn JS, as in I spoke as quickly as I could to try and fit all of it in 10 minutes, and I went over. But at the end of it, Jen Schiffer came up to me and was like, Rachel, stop being negative, which is true. I should stop doing that. But she also told me that I should reach out to Sean Larkin and suggest to change it because it would be a way better case study than just coming up here and being like, Webpack is bad. So I messaged him, and he was pumped. He was totally chill about it. He agreed with me. They opened up a pull request and are workshopping a better title for that section. So don't be afraid to reach out to maintainers with suggestions for, better language in a project or suggestions for any kind of improvements. You're helping them. The next one is organize the flow of people and ideas. So the important part of this is that good stories and experiences have logic and sequence that pay off for the time and effort that the users put in. So put this care into your documentation. Don't just give code samples and call it a day. Craft an experience for the users. Give them a backstory on when you built the thing and what you were trying to achieve with its creation. Give them all of the instruction and the tools that they need to provision their machine before even getting to the code that you wrote. Include a section with a link to commonly encountered errors or issues that people have. Each step along the way will set them up for success. A company that does this fantastically is Twilio. When you sign up for their services, during the sign-up process, they ask you what language is your primary language. And then when you're done with the sign-up and you're going to their projects, the things that you're looking up are already there in the language that you're looking for, so you don't have to go digging for it, and that's great. The next one is create a visual magnet. So Disney has visual magnets throughout the park, and they draw you in from a distance to a specific part. So Cinderella's castle, the rocket ship in Tomorrowland, Spaceship Earth in Epcot, they serve as a visual line, but also a point of reference for park goers. So you can coordinate meetup plans with these visual targets, and everybody knows what you're talking about. So in programming, one way that you can do this is by being unique with your demos. Create something exciting for people to build while learning how to use your code. It'll definitely stick out more than giving them a generic hello world or a to-do list. Somebody that does this fantastically is Wes Boss. The React for Beginners course, you build a really fun seafood ordering and inventory page. It's different and it grabs your attention and it helps explain props and states super well. It's one of my favorite resources to use whenever I need to go back and refresh React stuff, which is all the time because I have a terrible memory. And I can associate the things that I learned from him with each unique step of the tutorial that I went through, which is really memorable and important. The next one is communicate with visual literacy. So Imagineers use a ton of nonverbal ways to communicate. In order to be an effective communicator, make sure that you take advantage of the nonverbal tools you have at your command. So how is your documentation? Is it all just sample code? What could you do in order to improve the user's experience? So many people that are coming into programming are coming from non-traditional computer science backgrounds or are changing their jobs later in life. They're coming in as visual learners, and they need diagrams and drawings and cartoons to grasp concepts that might be new to them. So use them. And somebody who does this great is Lynn Clark. So Lynn's code cartoons are super helpful, and they explain a lot of concepts really visually, and it just helps it make sense versus reading an article about Redux, which who wants to do that? So the next one is avoid overload. When Imagineers take on a new project, they learn as much as they can about the story assignment, but then their second task is to reduce all of that to what's important. So you want to have a lot of information in your documentation, but you need to structure it well. Don't just have one really long page going to all of the information surrounding the API. Break it up into different parts. One section for getting started, another for an API reference, another one for code snippets. A company that does this fantastically is Stripe. Their documentation is really clean and organized. You know where to go, exactly where you need to go for when you need it. They don't overload you with too much information at the get-go, and they don't overwhelm you. The next one is tell one story at a time. Stick to the storyline. Good stories are clear, logical, and consistent. Disney invented the storyboard in the 1930s, which I didn't know about before I started this research, which was cool. And the whole point of it is to create a storyline that holds together from end to end. It's to create a clear story that they can review with anyone, even if they're not involved in the process, and they'll be able to understand it. So storyboard your documentation as well. Think of where you want the user to start out, and at the end, what knowledge you want them to come out that they didn't have at the beginning. If it's just an API reference, that's one thing, but for something more technically written, perhaps come up with a scenario and tell it that way. Case studies and user stories are also a fantastic thing to use for this. Oh, was that a double slide? Sorry about that. Oh, no, wait, storyboard. That was double. Okay, sorry about that. The next one is tell one story at a time, which I should have taken for this talk, because I just got confused. Oh wait, no, I see what's happening. That went double. Okay, here we go. Keynote. Listen, I worked on a Windows machine for the last year and a half. I'm getting used to this again. Okay, here we go. Somebody that does this really well is D3. So while not being the cleanest of the presentation of examples, they have a whole section of real-world implementations of D3 being used, which is really helpful because you can see the source and find parts that you can implement into your own projects. And a lot of libraries don't take advantage of this, and it really is the easiest way to show somebody implementations that they can take and build off from to just get started really quickly. Because sometimes a working real example of code is better than snippets that they can just piece together. The next one is avoid contradictions. Details and the design details of Disney's Main Street is friendly and complimentary. The City Hall doesn't conflict with the Opera House. Nothing is screaming out at you for attention. The graphics are equal in representation. You know where you are. And the details make for a really pleasant experience. So leave out the details of wants and things that didn't work out in your documentation. Keep only the positive messages. Sometimes people explain hardships that they experienced while making something or something that they wanted to do or didn't get to. I'm guilty of doing that before. Just leave it out. Don't include negativity unless it's something that you actually learned from and there's a lesson there. So one of those good things is no to-dos and readmes. Make them issues instead so people that want to get involved with your project can see it and see the things that need to get done. And just don't talk about the things that went wrong. So next is, for every ounce of treatment, provide a ton of treat. Disney educates, but they don't tell you that they're doing so. They let you discover and learn, but while being surrounded by fun and excitement. So I gave a talk last year at JSConf EU about learning how to program like in sites before Stack Overflow and Hacker News, where they gamified knowledge sharing and how much more fun it was then. Try and go back to the feeling that you had when you were first learning how to code and the excitement of learning something new, and try and add that magic and fun into your project. Somebody who does this perfectly is Sailor HG. Amy makes these amazing and fun, cute, super informative zines about computer science concepts through creative projects. They're really engaging and they keep you interested in. And the last, but probably the most important commandment is keep it up, maintain it. Disney is spotless, and since it's kept so clean, the guests inherently also keep it clean. Not wanting to contribute trash to an otherwise nice-looking area, without thinking about it, you're wanting to find the nearest trash can so that you don't contribute anything bad to a spotless park. The rides are always well-maintained, and that takes a ton of effort. If everything wasn't functioning the way it intended, it wouldn't be the same Disney experience. So the same principles go for our code. Maintain it, pay attention to the users. Don't ignore pull requests or people that are eager to contribute. Iterate as you learn more and make it better. And I know that's hard for really big projects, so just try and keep that as a basis for everyone that's involved to just check in every once in a while and see if there's people in there that are wanting to help. So yeah, check these things. I'm not saying what project this is for. It's big. Anyway, so basically what I'm trying to say is a creative thinking process is beneficial to technical material. It allows us to reach more people than we would if we stick to dry documentation with a lot of technical jargon. Putting care and attention into tracking all of your potential users will make your project better in the long run. So a lot of my research for this talk came from this book, which is One Little Spark. It goes over all of the 10 Commandments and tells you about how they apply to the Disney parks and how Imagineers use them in practice. It's really interesting if you want to check it out. And if you like what I had to say today, or if you want to yell at me, I don't know, you can find me a couple places. I am Oho on Twitter. I've also been streaming coding content on Twitch every Monday, Friday, and Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I started with free code camp. So I started all the way at HTML, and I'm going to make my way all the way to InfoSec, which I know nothing about. And I'm just streaming to try and show other developers that vulnerability is okay. I had a test go wrong when I was trying to write a horizontal rule tag, and I was like, okay, I know what a horizontal rule is. There's no way that there's something wrong here. And I had to live search free code camp test broken, and I was right. And I was like, I knew I was right. I'm also going to be creating fun videos on YouTube of programming and hardware for non-programmers, so cosplayers, hobbyists, stuff like that. And I'm calling both of these What the Help, because it's cute. And I'm also on Drip, which is Kickstarter's Patreon-like platform. This was Journey into Imagination. I'm Rachel White. Thank you. Yay!